Alright guys, it's Trail over at GOHUNT. We get a bunch of questions about buying a new archery sight, and today I wanted to run through some sights that we carry in the gear shop, as well as just answer some commonly asked questions. I think June, July is a great time to pick up a new sight. Maybe you drew the tag of a lifetime and you're kind of missing out that last piece of equipment like a brand new sight. Help you be that much more accurate and effective in the field. So I want to run through and just touch on some factors of buying a new sight, and then particularly maybe do a little review of some of the sights that we carry in the GOHUNT gear shop. So with that, I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about buying a new sight, what you might potentially be looking for. One of the first things that people ask is, do I need a slider sight or a standard sight? You'll see that a lot of sights nowadays are what we call slider sights, meaning that you have the ability to have a fixed pin, whether that's a fixed single pin or 5-pin, and then you have the ability to move the entire gang adjustment up and down to get extended yardage out of that sight. And really, I would say at this point in time, most Western big game hunters are buying slider sights. I would bet close to 80% of the sights that we sell from the GOHUNT gear shop are slider sights, meaning that you can move that gang up and down to either sight your pin in for exact yardage, all the way from 20 out to potentially 100, 110 yards. Or if you want to use a 5-pin slider like this, you can use your pins to sight in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and use your bottom pin as the rover to get that extended 70, 80, 90 yards. I think a lot of people probably are not taking 70, 80, 90, 100-yard shots in the field. But with events like Total Archery Challenge, people like to shoot long range. They just like to get out and extend their yardage and their range and play around with their bow and arrow. So I would say at this point, most people are buying slider sights. I think they're a lot of fun. They can be more accurate in the sense that you can dial those and set them up to exact yardages. So that's one thing to think about. The other sight is a standard mount sight, a fixed pin sight. So this Hunter by Spot Hogg is your simple 5-pin fixed sight. It's a standard mount. You've got 5 fixed pins. So this thing is not a slider sight. You're not going to be able to manipulate that, move it up and down to exact yardage. Essentially what you're going to do is buy this sight, mount it up, and move your individual pins and sight those individual pins in at 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. I would suggest for beginning bow hunters, beginning archers, a fixed pin sight is a good place to start. A lot of whitetail hunters are using just plain fixed pin sights because in essence a lot of their shots are closer. So you're hunting from a tree stand. It's a much more controlled environment. You may not need a sight that you can get extended yardage out to 100 yards. So a fixed pin sight is probably a better option in those situations. There's a lot less that can go wrong with them. They're a lot more simple to set up and use. And like I said, I would suggest that it's probably a better sight for a beginner if you're just getting into bow hunting. So that's one of the considerations. Another question we get asked quite a bit is, do I need a dovetail mounting sight or just a standard mount? You can see that most of the sights here I have on the table right now are a dovetail mount, which is this dovetail bracket here that's actually going to attach to your bow. If you're shooting a Matthews bow, a lot of these sights will slide right in the riser and use that bridge-like technology to mount them directly in the riser. All of them will come with a mounting bracket that you can mount standard to a regular bow on the side of the bow. The reason that people might want a dovetail sight is it gives you the ability to move this sight further or closer into the riser to get a more custom fit with your individual peep sight. So what you want to do is when you're shooting is line your peep sight up with the outside of your housing. It's going to give you consistent alignment from shot to shot. This dovetail gives you the ability to slide that thing in and out to ensure that you get perfect alignment between your peep, which you can use different sizes of peeps, but does allow you to fine-tune that. Another reason that people like these dovetail sights is working under the theory that the further the sight is from your bow, the further the distance between your eye and that sight, and in theory it should be potentially a little bit more accurate because that distance is a longer distance. It's a better point of aim. There's some other considerations to make in that, but that's kind of that theory of that dovetail sight and really pushing it out further from your bow to maybe potentially give yourself a little bit more accuracy. So that's a dovetail. The other one, like I said, is a standard mount. This Spot Hogg Hunter 5-pin is a standard mount, which is going to bolt directly to the side of your riser. You can see that most of these standard mounting sights without the dovetail, they have multiple positions so that you can still push that out farther away from your riser if you want, or you can move it back and forth, but this is more of your standard sight setup. I would say that right now most of the cells in the shop and across most shops, I would assume, are these dovetails. They've really become popular in bow hunting over the last probably 3 to 5 years. So that's the difference between a bow hunting dovetail and just a standard mount. Probably one of the next questions that we get asked a lot about is about pin size. Your most common pin sizes are going to be 0.010, which is the smallest pin size. Then you've got 0.019 and then 0.029. So a 0.010 is the smallest pin. I would say the most common that people are buying is the 0.019. And really what you're getting there is just the size of the pin. Some people have better eyes and they like a smaller pin because it allows them to aim a little bit more fine-tuned. It's a smaller pin, so it doesn't take so much of the target up when you're aiming. Some people have older eyes like myself and they like a larger pin, like a 0.029. I think probably a happy medium is the 0.019, and it's the most common sight sold. Next consideration that you need to think about when you're buying a sight is the adjustability. So many of these sights have what they call micro adjustable. You can see this CBE sight right here. It's got micro adjustability in the gang adjustment, both in the vertical and the horizontal. Where that comes in handy is when you're really trying to fine tune your pins and when you're sighting that bow in. A simple click is going to move it ever so slightly versus loosening a set screw and moving that thing completely in and out. It can be that much harder to maintain the starting spot. So these little micro adjustable clicks are really handy. You want to think about that. They're a little bit more money, the micro adjustability in those, but in my opinion, it's a much better option. You'll save yourself some headaches at the range when you're trying to sight your pins in. The next consideration I think you ought to make when you're buying a sight is the ability to level that sight. You absolutely have to have the ability to level this specifically for your second and third axis. Your second axis is this level to the ground, so your horizontal level. Your third axis, you can see here, is the ability to move this sight housing either in or out this way. And where your second and third axis leveling really comes into play is executing shots in mountainous terrain. And specifically your third axis, when you're aiming uphill or downhill or you're on a side hill and you're executing that shot, you have to have your third axis leveled. And you're going to level that at full draw, and there's some ways that you can do that, and maybe we'll do that on another video. But the ability to level your second and third axis are key to being accurate in hunting the Intermountain West and any mountainous terrain when you're shooting angles, either up or down. I personally would not buy a sight unless you have the ability to level the second and third axis. The third axis is very important in executing an accurate shot in mountainous terrain. Another couple considerations I think you ought to make when buying a new sight is the durability of the sight, and then also just the weight of the sight. So some of these sights are quite a bit heavier than others. Some people don't mind the weight of the sight. I personally don't like a really heavy sight. I would prefer a lighter weight sight. If I've got weight in my bow, I want to put it in my stabilizers. I want to put it out away from the bow and help me balance the bow. I try to keep my sights a little bit lighter if I potentially can, and it's definitely something that you want to think about. In saying that, some of the most heavy sights are also the most durable. A Spot Hogg sight, for example, is among one of the heavier sights, but the tolerances and the build, the craftsmanship that goes into these sights is extremely good. The tolerances are very tight. There's almost no rattle whatsoever in these sights over time. The wear and tear is extremely good. It's a very, very durable sight. It's definitely a consideration I think you ought to make, and potentially maybe find some happy medium ground with your sight. Personally, I've been using this Axcel landslide sight for a number of years, and that's one of the reasons I really like this sight is I feel like I get good durability out of it, but it also has some features built into it that make it lighter weight, including the carbon fiber dovetail mount bar. It's got no extra parts and pieces really. It's actually a pretty lightweight sight, and I feel like it still offers me good durability. But you kind of need to think about your hunting style. Some people are really rough on their equipment. They absolutely have to have a sight that's bomb-proof. And if that's you, and that's the case, you're hard on your gear and you're a hard hunter, you might err on the side of buying one of these sights like a Spot Hogg or an HHA and getting a sight that's extremely durable. You don't have to worry about it. You're going to set it and forget it. Yeah, so if you're hard on your equipment, you may need one of these sights that's extremely durable, all metal construction like this HHA. You can set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about the durability. If you're a little bit, you pamper your equipment a little bit like I do, maybe you can get away with one of these lighter weight sights that maybe isn't quite as durable, but still offers you, the function that you need, but you get to save a little bit of weight. But it's definitely something you ought to think about. With that, I'm just going to run through some of these sights that we have. These are probably some of the most popular sights that we have in the GOHUNT gear shop. I'm just going to touch real quickly on things I like and maybe some things I don't like about each one. Hopefully it can help you guys make a decision on which sight is the best one for you. Starting down here on the end, HHA is a new sight for us in the GOHUNT gear shop. We recently started carrying these maybe a few months ago. In my opinion, this is one of the best in terms of durability and tolerances. It's extremely well built, all metal construction. I've been playing around with this sight for a few months and shooting it in my V3X, and there's almost no rattle whatsoever in this sight. Extremely low vibration. It's very well built. It's got micro adjustability. The slider portion of the sight locks out, and it's a very, very smooth transition when you're sliding that sight up and down. One of the things I really like about it, it's got a little magnified piece here on your yardage, which is nice. If you got old eyes like I do and you can't see that well anymore, this little magnified portion on your yardage is very nice. But this is the Tetra Max version. It's a dovetail tournament edition sight. It's expensive, but it is a very, very nice sight. And they do make this in a 2-pin, a single pin, and then also a 4-pin option. Individual pins are adjustable, micro adjustable. You have a ton of adjustability in this sight. I can't recommend this sight enough. I think it's a really, really solid choice if you're looking for a top-end hunting sight. It's super, super durable. Really tight tolerances. I was going to give you a weight on each one of these as I go through that and just give you an idea on how much one of these might weigh. So I'm going to pop it on the scale. So that one's 13.7 ounces, and once again that's the HHA Tetra Max 4-pin sight. All right, next up is the Axcel Landslide. This is a 5-pin version of that sight. Again, it's got a carbon bar, which is kind of nice. It's going to lighten the weight up on that sight. These have these individual little clicks that you can set for your various yardage. So I'm using this 5-pin version. I'm using the bottom pin as my floater. So these little clicks, micro clicks right here on the side, I can set those up so that even without looking at this sight, I can audibly hear that when those click in as I move that sight down. So I don't even have to look at it per se. I can just listen to it as those click in, and I can set those from any yardage I want, from 70, 80, 90, 100, even 110 yards if I wanted to. I do really like that. The individual indicator is adjustable. The wheel itself is really smooth. It's got a locking mechanism right here, this little red lever, and you can move that thing up and down. You can hear that click in. The brightness of the pins is easily adjustable. You've got a little sunshade here that you can rotate back and forth. And that's, I should say, most of these sights have the ability to adjust the brightness of the pins with the sunshade. The HHA also does. You just pull that thing back and you can adjust the brightness of your pins depending on the time of day. Each pin is individually adjustable on this sight, which is a nice feature. You get a nice clear green bubble here in the bottom. I typically do not like oversized housings. This one's a decent size. It fits really well within my peep, and like I said, with the dovetail mount, I can slide that thing in and out and get a nice fit with my peep sight. This one is micro adjustable. The thing I like about this, there's no Allen wrenches required to loosen this. It's got like a little sear pin, which I just pop in, and then I can click that thing to my left or right to move my gang adjustment. So when I'm sighting these pins in, I'm up at the range. It's a very simple and easy adjustment to move that sight left or right to sight my pins in. So I do really like that. The other thing I like about this sight is that it's really lightweight. So I'm going to throw it up on the scale and give you an idea. That one's 10.3 ounces. So that one's over 3 ounces lighter than the HHA. Like I said, I do feel like I get good durability out of this. Probably not as much as the HHA or the Spot Hogg. It's kind of a middle of the road, which is the reason I've been using it for a lot of years, is I like the weight of it. I also think it's durable enough. Next up I'm going to grab is probably the best-selling sight in the GOHUNT gear shop. It's the Fast Eddy Axcel. This sight comes in 3-pin, 5-pin, 2-pin, single pin. It comes in another configuration called the triple stack, which is 3 pins in an up vertical manner, which is nice because you get a better field of view. The reason this is such a hot seller in our GOHUNT gear shop is just the durability that you get out of a Spot Hogg, and once again, the tolerances in the sight are extremely tight. It's very, very well built. When you pick up a Spot Hogg sight, you play with it, you know pretty quick that this sight is really, really well built. Each one of the pins are individually adjustable up and down, and you can do that with these little Allen screws here. Micro adjustable, both on the gang adjustment. You also have the vertical adjustment in the slider portion of it. One thing I really like about these Spot Hogg Fast Eddies is that the adjustment wheel is big. It's easy to grip even with gloves on. It's really smooth. It's just a really, really well built sight. It's also got the locking mechanism, which is great. You've got a nice arrow indicator there. There's no question on where your sight is set. Dovetail mount, again, you've got a nice pin brightness in these. Another thing I really like about Spot Hogg sights that many of the other sights don't have is they always have the vertical wire that runs through the center of the sight. That's a nice little feature when you're aiming. You can use that vertical wire to kind of line it up, let it float with your pin. It's just another aiming reference point that I actually really appreciate. Another thing I like about these Spot Hogg sights is that they come with these adjustable housing rings. So you can see the one that is on it is a large one. You have a smaller version of that, and you have kind of a medium version. And you can play with those to see what works best for you and your eye and aligning the housing with your peep sight. So that's kind of a cool little feature that comes with these Spot Hogg Fast Eddy sights. Overall, like I said, tons of adjustability both on the vertical and the left and right. You can move that in and out. It's got micro adjustability. I mean, it really does have all the features that you would want in a hunting sight. If there is a downfall of the Fast Eddy and typically just the Spot Hogg sights in general, is that they, in my opinion, they are pretty heavy. So I'm going to throw this up on the scale and give you an idea on what one of these might weigh. That one is the heaviest sight, 14 ounces flat, so just 2 ounces short of a pound, which is pretty heavy, to be honest, in a bow sight. But what you're getting out of it is tight tolerances, very durable sight. We sell a ton of these, and like I said, probably the best-selling sight in the GOHUNT gear shop. It's the Fast Eddy. Tons of different pen configurations that you can get out of that sight. A couple others I wanted to touch on. The dialed sight. This is new to our GOHUNT gear shop. There's some features in this sight that I actually really, really like. There's a few things about it that I find kind of quirky that I don't necessarily love. They're not a deal breaker. It's a really nice sight, though, in my opinion. It's probably the sight I'm going to end up using this fall. One of the things I really like about it is that the bubble is in the top of the housing. It's so easy to pick that bubble up in your peripheral vision versus all the other sights where the bubble sits in the bottom. The other thing about having the bubble in the top of the sight is that it frees up your field of view throughout the sight. So as you begin to dial this sight to extended yardages, you've got that much more room in the bottom, and it just kind of frees up your vision in the bottom of your housing as you're aiming at those extended yardages. So I definitely really like that. I think, in my opinion, it's a superior way to have a bubble level in your sight. The adjustability on the brightness of the pin is kind of nice. You just slide the sunshade back and forth up on top. The other thing that you'll notice about the dialed sight is the angled slider portion of this sight. What that allows you to do is get a little more yardage because of the angle as that thing slides down. Like I said, this is a 3-pin version of this sight. I can get 110 yards out of the center pin, With the bottom pin down at the bottom, I can probably get close to 130 yards out of this sight, which is pretty dang cool if you just want to fling some arrows at yardage. It's a dovetail. You can see that the adjustment is here on the outside. It's really smooth adjustment. Weight on the dialed Arcos sight, I'm going to throw that up there just to give you an idea what it weighs. That one is 12.5 ounces, so it's kind of middle of the road. A few ounces less than your heavy duty versions, but a little bit more than the CBE or the Axcel. Overall though, really quality design. The pin is super bright. You can get different color housings, so there's a lot of adjustability. There's a lot of cool things about this sight. And like I said, even though it's got a few quirks about it, I still think it's going to be the sight I'll end up using this fall. So you want to check that out. It's the Arcos by Dialed. Next sight I just wanted to touch on. I think this is probably one of the most underrated, in my opinion, sights that we have in the GOHUNT gear shop and just in general. This is the CBE Trek Pro. You have a carbon fiber dovetail here on the side. You've got really smooth adjustment in this. You've got locking mechanisms for both your vertical and your horizontal adjustment, which is nice. It's totally micro adjustable. The pin is really clear and bright. You also have a sunshade across the top that you can slide open to get that pin a little bit more bright. I think the sight is really lightweight. I think it's quite durable, and for the money, I think it's actually a really, really good deal if you're looking for a slider sight. The other cool thing about CBE sights is that they come with a package of metal range tapes, so you can bolt that onto your sight once you find the tape that matches your bow and your configuration. That's nice because you don't have to worry about rain washing away your sight tape. It's pretty cool that they come with metal tapes. The other thing is that these CBE sights come with a variety of different colored rings, so if you don't like the green ring, you can use a white one. Those just simply snap on, so it gives you a little bit of adjustability in your sight. Super lightweight, pretty durable. I'm going to throw it up on the scale, give you an idea on how much this sight weighs. That one's 10 ounces, so you know, super lightweight sight, durable, and I think you get a ton of features within the CBE for the money. If I was looking to get into a slider sight, I think this is a really nice option that you ought to explore with a ton of adjustability. Pretty cool sight. I think a lot of people probably aren't aware of CBE sights or just don't check those out like they ought to, but that's a really great sight. Last sight I wanted to touch on, I don't want to go too deep into it, but like I said, I think it's a great option for people that are getting into bow hunting. This is the Hunter from Spot Hogg. It's a simple 5-pin sight. It's micro adjustable for your left and your right, and then also your gang adjustment up and down. I think this is a really well-built sight for a new bow hunter or even maybe whitetail hunters that you're just hunting from a tree stand. It's got 5 pins. Pin brightness on that is super clear. Overall, Spot Hogg sights, like I said, they're just known for being absolutely bomb-proof. It is adjustable for both your second and your third axis. So I think if you're getting into hunting, you're a whitetail hunter, this is a really nice option you ought to explore. It does come with the different sight housing rings, which is another nice feature of these Spot Hogg sights. I'm going to pop that up on the scale and give you an idea on what it weighs. That one is 9.2 ounces. So you're missing the dovetail, you're missing some of the features that the Fast Eddy XL has. All right, so that's a brief rundown on the various sights that I picked out that I wanted to highlight within our GOHUNT gear shop that we carry. I know that I kind of ran through those fast. There's so many intricacies of each individual sight. And I know that you can really dive down a rabbit hole if you want to explore each individual option. I probably went through that pretty quick, so if you got specific questions about a sight or any of the sights that we carry in the shop, drop them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer those. Like I said, now is the time to get a new sight on your bow and get ready to go hunting this fall.